Any dog's life would be eternally altered by what transpired next. What could this extraordinary dog do to silence them? The gas station was encircled by the shimmering heat of the sun, with its lone pump island. Desert road, the roar of oncoming motorcycles, shining chrome, disturbed the late afternoon silence. With loud laughter and revving motors, a gang of leather-clad motorcyclists pulled in on plated motorcycles. Among the few customers at the station, Officer Alex Carter's tough, defiant manner dominated the quiet environment. An experienced police officer, renowned for his unwavering composure under duress, stood by his patrol car and calmly awaited the Harper, his canine partner, was sitting next to him, a sleek jet black pump to fill his tank. Harper, a German shepherd with intense amber eyes, radiated a calm assurance. As he looked around with alert precision, the bikers got off and started talking loudly while making fun of him. Harper was quickly the target of amusement from one of them, a burly man named Rex, who laughed and pointed at the dog. "What's wrong?" Too terrified to bark, the child made his friends laugh in accord. Another remarked that he didn't look so tough too. Alex was calm, his palm resting easily, and I was merely a mute wearing a nice collar. The dog on Hara's head did not flinch, maintaining his unblinking gaze on the others, although Alex could feel Harper's tension beneath the icy facade, like a coiled spring ready to react if needed. Alex leaned, low and softly said, "Harper, let's see how this works out for the bikers." They kept taunting Harper, and one of them even threw a piece of candy at her while laughing. Rex scoffed, his voice brimming with scorn, as the dog disregarded it. "I suppose the mutt doesn't know how to have fun." Harper's composure, which the bikers were unaware of, was the consequence of years of intense preparation. Harper was more than simply a dog. She was a distinguished canine officer who was known for taking up risky situations head-on. As the tension in the air increased, one of the motorcycles violated the boundary by approaching Alex, and Harper's menacing demeanor would leave the bikers stunned and teach them a valuable lesson. The bikers' laughing reverberated around the petrol station as Rex approached Alex and Harper, and they would never forget it. His massive friend threw a Harper over the cop, his posture displaying confidence. "Without your little mutt to support you. What's the deal, officer?" Rex scoffed, his voice brimming with condescension. Alex looked up coolly, his years of handling rowdy people keeping him stable, so there was no need for animosity. He responded calmly to simply filling up and leaving like you, and his voice had the understated power of someone. Harper stayed sitting, staring at Rex without needing to prove himself. Alex understood that even though the dog was calm and unflappable, every muscle in his body was stiff with readiness. Harper kept an eye on Rex's every action, waiting for the smallest clue that danger was approaching as the motorcyclists surrounded him. As their derisive comments became more intense, one of them leaned up close to Harper and snapped his fingers in Alex's patrol cruiser. "Come on, show us what you've got," the dog said sneeringly as his friends howled with laughter. Alex's jaw tightened, but he stood his own, keeping his hand on Harper's head. Alex replied in a calm but forceful tone, "Giving you the benefit of the doubt, please leave, and we'll all carry on with our day without incident." Rex chuckled deeply, guttural noise that indicated anything other than collaboration. "You believe you can control us simply because you have a badge. We are not answerable to anyone, particularly not a police officer hiding behind a mute." His brows furrowed as he poked a. Before Alex could react, Rex jerked a finger in Harper's direction and pushed Harper's collar, a careless act intended to provoke, but Harper's reaction was lightning fast, and the dog's piercing yelp pierced the atmosphere as soon as his palm touched Harper. His posture changed to a protective crouch, and he easily bared his teeth. The motorcyclist chuckled uneasily as Rex stepped back in surprise. In sharp contrast to their previous mockery, Harper's imposing presence was evident despite their faltering confidence. "I warned you," Alex remarked, straightening his composed manner. As a certified canine officer, Steely Harper is not amenable to threats. "Do I?" But Rex wasn't finished. Emboldened by his companions, he turned to one of the gas pumps and grinned, showing how tough he was. He added, "Your mutt is when I turn up the heat," snatching up the nozzle and feigning to point it at Alex's patrol car. His hand moved to his holster as his instincts told him to halt there. As both sides prepared for the next move, The tension in the air was electric. Harper, sensing the change, snarled low and, despite the motorcycle's size, the gang hesitated, uncertain if they should make the steady sound that sent shivers down their spines. They weren't prepared to give up, Rex, but they wanted to try their luck one more time. "You think your dog can stop me?" Teased, his bluster concealing his mounting discomfort. Alex stepped forward, his voice firm. "You have two options. Either leave or find out exactly what occurs when. Believe me, you don't want a second choice for a second." The bikers, when you threaten a K9 officer and his handler, appear to be stuck between their pride and the fact that they were clearly outmatched. But Rex's next move would compel everyone to act, turning the confrontation into something far more hazardous. Rex's gaze flitted. With defiance, he tightened his hold on the gas pump nozzle, and the tension in the air seemed like it. Rex shook his head, refusing to lose, even though one of the motorcyclists said, "Come on, Rex, let's just go. This isn't worth it." Rex abruptly changed his tone before this mutt, and his handler realized who they were dealing with in front of his crew. With his hand on his holster, Harper, furious Alex maintained a solid stance. Stayed at his side, every muscle teaching, every roar a constant reminder of the threat. He offered last warning without using words. "Put the nozzle down and go," Alex murmured in a steady, low voice. "This doesn't." For a brief while, it appeared as though Rex may comply with his grasp on the nozzle. Loosened up a bit, and he looked at his crew, who were now saying unclear stares. But as the tension appeared to subside, Rex abruptly turned his hand. Harper leaped into action before Alex could respond, jerking toward his patrol car as though to spray the throttle. In a flash, the dog swung his jaws and grabbed Rex's jacket sleeve. Harper maintained his strong grip as the collision threw Rex off balance and sent the nozzle clattering to the ground. Jaws making sure Rex couldn't move again, the motorcyclists halted, their previous bluster giving way to wide-eyed terror. "Get him off," Rex shouted, his tough guy persona collapsing under Harper's hold. Stayed firm, Alex went up and commanded, "Call off your dog, man," one of the motorcyclists begged. However, Harper held Harper's hand and Alex didn't flinch. He spoke in a calm but firm tone. However, Harper held Harper's hand and Alex didn't flinch. He spoke in a calm but firm tone. The dog immediately complied, letting go of Rex and taking a step back. But his stance remained vigilant and prepared for any additional. Rex staggered to his feet, his face flushed with a mixture of humiliation and rage. "You'll regret this," he spat. Alex ignored the threat. "So, I'll make sure you lose that mud in your badge," while pointing a quivering finger at him. He turned to face the other riders instead, his eyes unblinking and hard. "You're done here," he growled. "Take your friend and go." Now, under Alex's unwavering support, the bikers questioned their allegiance to Rex. Harper's subtle warning and authority eventually caused one of them to take Rex by the... Reluctantly, Rex let himself be taken away, but he gave a final glare. Come on, man, let's just go." "This isn't over," he whispered over his shoulder, his voice dripping with venom. Alex released the tension in his shoulders with a long sigh as the sound of motorbike motors roaring receded into the distance. "Good work, partner," he remarked, lowering himself to Harper's level and placing his palm on the dog's head. His voice was subtly full of pride and appreciation, but Alex saw that the interaction wasn't without its repercussions. He was aware of the footage from other onlookers who were recording the situation from a distance with their phones up. Would probably wind up online, and shortly when Alex was ready to climb, inquiries concerning his behavior and Harper's would follow. A man came from the petrol station and got into his patrol car. "Excuse me, officer. I saw the entire thing. Those guys were out of line," he stated hesitantly. "If you need a witness, I'm happy to give a statement." "Thank you for the gesture," Alex nodded, "and I might take you up on it as." With Harper sleeping next to him, Alex left the petrol station, his mind racing with potential next steps. It was unlikely that the bikers would overlook this, particularly not someone like Rex, and with Alex understood he would need to be ready for public and departmental scrutiny when the event was captured on tape. However, despite the doubts, Alex was really proud of Harper because the dog had once again shown his devotion and trained to be an unwavering defender in the face of peril. No matter what obstacles awaited him, Alex knew he could. Alex drove away from them, keeping the stress at bay as long as Harper was with him. Harper rested on the passenger seat, his keen eyes sweeping the scene of the gas station encounter that lingered in the air. The ever-vigilant surroundings and the faint police radio served as a background for Alex's thoughts, which were halted when his phone buzzed and a dispatch message appeared on the screen. Return to the station as soon as possible. Clip that is doing the rounds online. Chief wants to talk to you about a knot that formed in Alex's. He had anticipated some fallout from the petrol station, but it appears that we've agitated the situation. Harper looked at the dog as friend Alex spoke to her, and the dog gave a small huff in response. When Alex first arrived at the station, the cops were unusually tight, as if to say, "I've got your back," whispered into each other's ears as he passed across the hallway, sensing their interest, and Chief Sanders was waiting in his office with his arms crossed out of anxiety. Harper sat dutifully as Alex, the chief, commanded in a strong tone. Unreadable. Close the door. The chief turned his monitor toward Alex as he sat down, playing a video of the gas station. With headlines like "Police Dog Takes Down Biker in Heated Confrontation," the incident was already becoming popular on the internet. The chief asked his voice if Hero K9 or excessive force cared to explain this. Rex's violent actions and Harper's restrained reaction to the dog were described by measured Alex. Alex claimed that he only intervened when the subject posed a threat and that he followed protocol. After watching the tape many times, Chief Sanders nodded slowly. Harper's actions were standard, but the public doesn't always think so. Rex is skilled at playing the victim, and the video doesn't show his threats or the "What are we dealing with here?" the chief. Alex's jaw stiffened after the nozzle incident. Rex is filing charges after claiming the dog attacked. He sighed while reclined in his chair. Rex's ties run deep, and he's causing trouble with local activists by painting him without provocation. Alex was enraged by this instance of police wrongdoing, but he maintained his cool. We can combat that with evidence, witness accounts, gas station monitoring, and we can demonstrate Harper's. Sanders claimed that the actions were justified, and I've already asked for the video, but there's more to this than that. Rex isn't. They're using this as a pretext to target the punk biker, who is connected to a broader gang network. Department. And Alex's thoughts were racing because the situation had gotten far worse than. He had foreseen Harper's involvement in the event, but Justified had highlighted both of them as though on cue Alex's. The phone buzzed once more, and a message from an unidentified number showed up. Keep an eye on your back, officer, and the bikers. Don't forget Alex. Presented the message to the chief, who scowled profoundly. This proves that they are aware of you, and I'm now assigning you additional patrols and support, but I urge you to be cautioned since another officer knocked on the door before Alex could react. Taking immediate action, Chief, we have a scenario where a bunch of bikers is. Rex seemed to be directing them as they gathered close to Alex's neighborhood. The room fell silent, and Alex's heart fell as the consequences his home serve as a haven of peace and quiet where he and Harper could relax after a long day. Alex responded, I'll handle it, standing suddenly. Not alone you won't, as the prospect of it being targeted filled him with dread. Take it back, Sanders said. This isn't just about you. It's also about letting people know that we won't be frightened. After leaving the office with Harper at his heels, Alex nodded in gratitude for the support and got ready to. Harper let out a low growl as they got closer to the patrol car, sensing the growing tension in the. They don't know who they're playing with, do they, boy Harper? Alex squatted down and stared into his partner's eyes. The patrol car's engine roared to life as he replied with a wag of his tail, a silent pledge of strength and loyalty. The flashing red and blue lights reflected off the silent streets as Alex and Harper raced to approach his neighborhood. Alex's mind swirled with a mixture of rage and resolve after facing the group. Threats previously, but this time it was personal. As they got closer to his block, Alex slowed down and looked around. The sight of a dozen bikers stopping close to his driveway, their bikes forming a circle, made his stomach knot. Rex stood in the middle, arms crossed, like a semicircle of predators circling their prey. With his ears pushed back and a smug smile on his face, Harper growled softly from the passenger seat. Easy boy, Alex. Stated that he grabbed the radio dispatch even though his own heart was pounding. Officer Alex, please provide a backup copy right away as there is a gang-related gathering on my land. Units en route, Alex parked the vehicle at the end of the street and stepped out with Harper by his side after the dispatcher responded. As the motorcyclists turned to face him, their hostile stances, Rex's smile grew. "We thought we'd stop by and say hello," as he went forward. "But if it's not the hero cop in his mutt," he sneered. Alex said, "Hello. Are you trespassing on private property?" in a calm but forceful tone. Rex snorted and said, "Get out now, or you'll face criminal trespass charges." Sarcastic noise. "Oh, we're not leaving until we've had a brief conversation," he said, gesturing to his staff. Harper stiffened, his piercing eyes fixed on the group Alex, and aired some frustrations. Quietly reassured his partner, "This isn't a negotiation," by placing a hand on his back. Alex remarked, "You've made your point. Go immediately," but Rex wasn't going to back down. "You made me feel ashamed. Cop your dog." As Rex talked, Alex observed, "You're going to pay for humiliating me." From the corner of his eye, he saw a motorcycle approaching the house's side with the likely intention of damaging the. "Remain where you are. No one moves." Property, Alex's voice snapped. Alex stepped forward as the biker froze his hand halfway to a can of spray paint. Rex's smile wavered a little as he said, "I don't care how tough you think you are. You're in over your head." However, he recovered fast. "You believe that you are impenetrable, Alex, and that your dog makes you unbeatable. Let's." As if on cue, another biker reached into his jacket and took out a little firework, demonstrating his true toughness. Harper didn't flinch when the device, which was thrown toward her, landed a few feet away with a harsh crack that split the air. He barked like a thunderclap and surged forward, startling the riders with his unexpected aggression. Who retreated a step. Rex's confidence wavered even more as Harper came back to Alex's side, his piercing eyes challenging anyone to. "You have the courage to take the next step, and I'll give you that," Alex stated in a voice. Steady, "But since this is over, you don't want to put us to the test again just yet." As the second backup arrived, the far-off wail of sirens became louder, boosting Rex's self-assurance. He looked at his staff, who were starting to move uneasily, and added, "Leave now or face the consequences." He crumbled completely. Repercussions after he hesitated, obviously divided between preserving his dignity and skipping a nap. Rex ultimately spat on the. The motorcyclists cranked their engines one by one as he turned to face his troops and let them roll. As Alex mounted onto his bike, Rex was the last to depart, his glare burning into Alex as he pulled out of the driveway. He growled and roared out into the night, leaving the street quiet save for the hum of. Alex released his breath as the strain subsided and he saw the patrol cars arriving. He knelt down and scratched behind Harper's ears. "Well done, child," for remaining composed when the backup officers arrived. When Alex arrived, he gave them a briefing on the circumstances, describing the bikers and Rex's threats. One of the. A burly man called Carter gave Alex a shoulder clap as you were handling. Well, Alex could have quickly veered off course. "Thank you," Alex said, "but I've." Alex stayed in his driveway as the officers scattered, giving us the impression that this isn't the last time we'll see Rex and his group. Harper gently tapped his leg as a gentle reminder of the night's weight descending upon him. That he wasn't alone, Alex glanced down at his buddy, a tiny smile piercing his weariness for some reason they can't explain. When they faced a challenge, Harper waggled his tail and showed unwavering loyalty. The next morning, Harper growled softly at the window as sunlight came through the curtains, waking Alex. However, there was a lot of tension in the air, so Alex looked outside and saw an envelope taped to his mailbox with bold text on it. When the words, "You can't protect everyone," appeared in the letters, Alex's jaw tensed. Harper kept his wits about him, knowing it was a cowardly attempt to scare him with a message from Rex. Razor sharp, and Alex cautiously unlocked the front door after making sure there were no threats right away. He picked up the mail and carried it inside, where Alex unfolded the letter and read the offensive. "Harper, your dog's handwriting is something we will never forget or forgive." Alex, sensing his owner's discomfort, growled furiously and crouched to meet his partners. He mumbled, "They've made it personal now, buddy." But they're unsure of who they're dealing with, so Alex chose to. When he got to his precinct to report the threat, he discovered Captain Ramirez, a tough lady, was his captain. As Alex came in with the letter, she looked up already watching the video of the gang's last known activity. He handed her the envelope and added, "They're escalating." Ramirez quickly glanced at it and scowled. "Rex isn't just a thug, he's attempting to get under your skin by being cunning and testing your patience." Harper Alex added his tone, filled with rage. "I know you won't let anything happen to him, Ramirez. Rex is luring you into a mistake. So let's think tactically," she added, reclining back in her chair. As the precinct planned how to deal with the gang, Alex's phone rang with a message. "So make sure he's the one who makes a mistake." The text said it was from a neighbor who lived close to the gas station where the initial incident had taken place. Alex's senses kicked in when he noticed several of those motorcycles hanging about the neighborhood once more. He showed her the text and said, "I'll go over there." Ramirez hesitated and then, "I'll take a backup." Reluctantly, Harper Alex said, "Hune's better than any squad car." Ramirez agreed. In order to keep in touch, Alex parked his car a few blocks away from Harper's seat at the petrol station. As they walked toward the Harpers, he listened with his ears perked up at every sound in the passenger seat. At a distance, Alex saw two gang members leaning against their motorcycles close to the gas pumps. They appeared at ease and were smiling, smoking, but Alex was wise enough not to underestimate them. One of the men had tattoos running up his arms and was wiry, lazily swung a crowbar back and forth while holding it. His friend was a larger man, with a shaven head appeared more tense, looking about as though trouble was imminent. Harper was completely silent by his side, his training taking effect while Alex remained hidden and watched their conduct. Rex is furious with the wiry after waiting for the ideal moment for the gang members' chat to continue through the quiet morning air. One person nodded when he remarked, "The cop and his dog are going to pay the bulkier man. He wants the dog gone because he believes it will break." Alex's fists clenched, but he had to force himself to remain composed and obtain more details before acting. Harper stayed motionless, his body contorted like a spring, prepared to act at. The wiry man abruptly slammed the crowbar on a nearby garbage can at Alex's signal, and the deafening clang reverberated through. "I suggest that we handle it ourselves at the petrol station. Find that dog and teach it, eh?" Rex told you to wait for his word, but the larger man hesitated. "Doesn't own me," the wiry man retorted, and Alex determined that I'm not afraid of some mutt. When it was time to step in, he called out his voice as he left the Harpers, his badge gleaming amusingly in the sunlight. The gang members froze, whipping their heads in Alex's direction. "Solid and steady, that mutt is trained to take down guys like you." "Well, look who it is." The wiry one recovered swiftly, his lips tightening into a sneer. Alex grinned and gestured to Harper, who moved forward. "Are you alone?" Clearly intimidated, the heavier man stepped back, his presence imposing, but not nearly. However, the wiry one was more resilient and elevated the crowbar, adopting an aggressive stance that made you wonder if the dog would. Alex's expression intensified, and Harper let out a scream that scared me. A warning bark, his posture poised for attack, and Alex could feel the tension as the standoff lingered in the air. He trusted Harper's instincts entirely, even though he knew that things might soon go out of control. When they heard sirens in the distance, and the bikers talked to one another. The wiry man hesitated his eyes as the larger man grasped his companion's arm in a panic. "We must leave now." Alternating between Alex Harper and the oncoming backup, he finally cursed and got on his bike. "Isn't over, cop," he spit out, then roared his engine and drove away as the motorcycle riders vanished into the distance. With a wave of relief, Alex knelt down to Harper and scratched behind his ears. "You did good, buddy," he remarked. Fortunately, the patrol car showed up a short while later, and Alex informed the officers of the situation as they talked about. Alex couldn't get rid of the impression that Rex's group was getting more aggressive as the letter and the gas threats increased. As he returned to the precinct with Harper at his side, the station encounter was all part of a larger plan. Alex made the decision to always be one step ahead and to not allow the gang to threaten or hurt him. This was far from finished, Harper, but Alex was prepared for whatever happened next. Captain Ramirez Harper was peacefully asleep at his feet in the petrol station while Precinct Alex waited in the briefing room. Encounter dominated his thoughts, and the tense atmosphere in the room reflected his own internal struggle. "This group isn't simply, Ramirez tried to frighten you. saying in a controlled yet serious tone that they're pushing boundaries to see how far they can shove you before you strike back. Alex nodded, his jaw clenched. They're getting more aggressive because they believe I'll retaliate. Down, but that isn't the case with Harper involved. Ramirez took a moment to observe him before bending forward. Alex, I understand that Harper is family, not simply a partner. Therefore, you must carefully consider your next course of action. I faced the worst when Alex exhaled forcefully and ran a hand through his hair because they know it hurts where it hurts. Threats in my professional life, Captain, but this feels different because Harper is merely carrying out his duties and now his life is in jeopardy. We must be strategic because Ramirez relaxed a little. Harper's safety comes first, but so does yours. So let's make use of this. To our benefit, we'll force Rex to overplay his hand if he feels in control. Later that night, Alex ended up at. Harper was lying curled up on his bed at home, gazing out the window. The house was abnormally quiet, and for the first time, after a while, Alex felt the pressure of his obligations mounting on him, and the incident at the gas station was reproduced in. He couldn't get the things that the wiry biker spoke that followed out of his head. Alex's phone chimed, disturbing the silence, and the prospect of Harper getting wounded was nearly unbearable. Sophie, my sister, called from out of town and said, "Hey Alex," in a kind yet with a hint of deception. "I saw the news about the gang. Are you all right, Alex?" "I'm thankful for the diversion. And Harper is doing well despite having a lot on her plate. You've always been the protector, but it's acceptable to acknowledge when you need assistance that you don't. Must bear this alone." He paused, her words' vulnerability striking a chord. "It's not just about me," he finally said. "Harper is more than simply a partner. He has saved my life more times than I can count, and I can't let anything happen to him." Sophie whispered softly, "And I know you'll do whatever it takes. I can count to keep him safe, but don't allow your pride prevent you from seeking help. You have friends who are concerned about you." Alex felt a knot grow in his throat after they left. "Thank you very much. I needed that after." After they ended the call, Alex sat in the dim living room, his sister's words still ringing in his head, and he glanced across to Harper, who was now observing him closely as though she could sense his internal conflict. "You're my rock." You are aware that Alex's voice broke the quiet as Harper's tale responded with a gentle wave, and the next day Alex met with Ramirez and a small group of policemen to talk about their next course of action. As they went over the most current threats and came up with a strategy to deal with them, the tension in the room was evident. Ramirez's tone was firm, "But we can't tell the gang that we need to hit them where it hurts once and for all. They're keeping a careful eye on you, Alex, and you're the key to this. We can utilize that to our benefit." Alex nodded, realizing the seriousness of the issue. "What are you asking me to do?" Ramirez outlined a strategy whereby Harper would remain visible and Alex would carry on with his daily activities while the remaining members of the crew worked in the background to obtain intelligence on the gang's activities with the intention of luring Rex. And Alex had a renewed sense of purpose as the conference came to a conclusion, guiding his troops into a trap without endangering Harper. He wasn't fighting this battle alone, and his team's encouragement provided him the energy to continue that night. As Alex got ready for his next shift, he found himself thinking back on his relationship with Harper. The trust and loyalty they shared were unbreakable bonds created by years of collaborating in perilous circumstances prior to leaving. "They're coming for us, buddy," Alex whispered in a voice as he crouched next to Harper and put a hand on his partner's strong body. Harper licked Alex's face, saying, "We're ready. We've been through worse, and we'll get through this too." His eyes were filled with unflinching faith as his hand responded. It was a moment of. As they entered the darkness, Alex's quiet resolve served as a reminder of the power they derived from one another. Couldn't get rid of the impression that something significant was going to occur. The city was bustling with its typical mayhem, but Alex knew that a storm was building underneath the surface and that the gang would not give up until they achieved their goals. But they had. The night began quietly, but one thing was undervalued: the unshakable bond between a police officer and his dog. Harper sat alert in the squad car's passenger seat, while Alex patrolled the city's regular districts almost too quietly. Long Harpers were illuminated in the streets, and the weight of expectation seemed to reverberate with each wheel turn. The feeling that something was going to happen persisted as they turned onto a peaceful street close to the. Officer Walker arrived as Alex's radio in the industrial district roared to life. He spoke steadily yet urgently, saying, "We have word from an informant. Keep an eye out, Alex. Rex's group may be organizing something tonight, and they were observed close to your section." "Well, tighter," he said, his gaze sweeping the dark streets. Looking at Harper, "You ready, boy?" Harper growled in a low, yes voice. Sensing Alex's stress, the first indication of trouble appeared when Alex saw a motorcycle parked nearby. The bike's chrome gleamed dimly under the flickering streetlights, and the engine was still warm in an abandoned warehouse. Light Alex parked safely away and left, with Harper right behind him. As they got closer to the warehouse, he could hear the low murmur of voices in the air, which was heavy with the stench of rust and oil, grew louder as he and Harper approached. And as they peered through a smashed window, Alex noticed a band of members were gathered around a table, with Harper's dancing on the walls. Rex was in the middle of the gathering. He was giving orders with an unmistakable authoritative presence, and Alex strains to catch the details of his threatening and piercing voice. However, the high walls of the building distorted the words, so Alex murmured, "Stay here," gesturing for the dog to stay hidden because he needed a closer look, but he froze as he went around the perimeter after hearing a loud crash from within. Alex retreated behind a pile of guns as the gang members turned toward the commotion, their hands automatically reaching for them. As Alex saw that he wasn't the only one spying on the group from his vantage point, his heart began a race. Figure dart across the warehouse, moving quickly but clumsily. The young man, who was no more than 20, was grasping. He tripped and dropped what looked to be a bundle of papers, and the gang members jumped and grabbed one of them. Snarling, the young man grabbed the intruder by the collar and pulled him toward the table. His face was pale as he struggled. Fearfully, "What are you doing here?" Rex questioned in a low, menacing voice. "Didn't intend to steal anything," the young man stumbled, his hands trembling, and I assumed Rex interrupted him with a. Alex's blood flared as he watched the harsh chuckle. "Who did you think you could play with us and leave?" He realized he couldn't wait any longer as the gang closed in on their scared victim. So he signaled to Harper that he was ready. Alex's speech sounded powerful and unflinching as the police froze to interfere. Harper barked harshly as he entered the premises with his rifle drawn. His commanding. For a brief period, the warehouse was quiet. The tension was high enough to stop the gang members in their tracks. Cut with a knife, and then Rex walked forward, smirking and narrowing his gaze. Rex's tone was scornful, so he responded, "Well, who decided to join the party?" Came his tiny mutt too, and Alex steadfastly stepped away from the taunt. From the child, Rex grinned and motioned for his soldiers to take a step back. "You have courage, Walker, and I'll give you that. But do you really believe you can defeat us all?" Alex's weapon is tightly gripped. He continued, "Don't need to. With constant backups, this finishes here as if." Harper snarled low on cue, his piercing eyes focused on one of the gang members. Shifted uneasily, his fingers fluttering for his belt, but Harper's single bark caused him to freeze. "Train him properly," Rex stated in a sarcastic tone. "Too bad. He won't be able to help you much longer until." The gang closed ranks as Rex gestured for Alex to react, and one of his guys threw a metal pipe in his direction. Alex realized the situation was rapidly getting out of control, but he also knew he couldn't show. Alex's voice was firm and commanding. "Stay ready." The standoff was like predators closing in on their prey. The gang circled Alex and Harper with electrified, but when Rex held up his hand to, the night was shattered by a distant fleet of sirens, signaling an attack. Rex is self-assured. He hissed as his sneer wavered, and his head snapped toward the sound he called back up. He narrowed his eyes at Alex and said, "You didn't think I came here alone, did you?" in a tone that defied the gang. Members looked at each other uneasily as the sound of the approaching patrol cars grew louder, and Rex muttered curses. Seeing that the tide was turning, he let his confidence slip and retreated for the rear exit, barking at his team. Harper sprang forward to block their way with a nasty snarl before they could flee with Rex and his group. The warehouse felt like a pressure cooker because of Harper's uncompromising presence and the oncoming police. The gang members shuffled uneasily, some whispering anxiously among themselves. Rex, but they were about to burst. Wouldn't allow him to display fear. So you think this is finished? And he refused to give up his pride and reputation as a brutal boss. Alex maintained a strong stance with his rifle trained on Rex, who sneered and glared at him, saying, "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Harper gave a harsh growl when the group dropped whatever weapons they were carrying and lay face down. "This is your final warning." The young man who had been caught was reiterating the order, his body rigid and poised to act at any moment. His breathing was shallow as he hid behind a stack of crates earlier, his wide eyes darting between Alex and the others. Alex gave him a short glance, communicating with a pale face as he held the bundle of papers closer to his chest. A subliminal indication that he would keep him safe. The sirens blaring increased in volume, and soon the dim red and blue lights of gang members started to panic as the squad cars painted the warehouse walls, and some of them threw their weapons at the ground as others paused, seeking guidance from Rex, but Rex remained still. As soon as the first officers arrived at the warehouse, Rex's eyes darted between the squad vehicles and the exits, changed to despair, and with a sudden surge of energy, he sprang toward the young guy, reaching out to seize him. "Harper's papers," Alex ordered, his voice piercing the confusion in. Harper suddenly charged at Rex, stopping him in his tracks with a well-timed leap, and the dog landed in front of him. Rex staggered back, taken by surprise, as the young man's teeth bared and a low growl rumbled from his chest. Harper's accuracy and speed remained low. "Rex," Alex yelled, approaching as. While the police picked up the gang, Alex went over to the young man who was approaching him. Though still shaking behind the crates, Alex murmured, "You're safe now," softly holstering his. "Eric," the young man stammered. "What's your name?" "I didn't plan to get." Immediately, Alex lowered himself to Eric's level and spoke in a soothing, quiet voice. "Take a deep breath, Eric," he said. "Why were you here in the first place?" Eric paused, his gaze flitting to Rex, who was now handcuffed. "I heard them discussing some delivery," and Eric started glaring at him. "I work at the gas station they frequent, so I didn't first give it much thought," but his voice was barely above a whisper. Then I noticed that they were moving crates of weapons and other items belonging to Alex. Eric nodded, and my jaw tightened. "You mean illegal contraband?" I wondered whether I might obtain evidence that I could approach the police, but they apprehended me before I could depart. Alex and Harper looked at each other, and Harper, "You did the right thing by attempting to report them, but you need to have called us instead of standing protectively by Eric's side." Eric's shoulders dropped, and I know and this could have ended poorly sooner. Didn't think anyone would believe me, and Rex, who was still being held by the officers, was making fun of Alex. "You will regret poking your nose in our throats if you believe you have won this. My crew will save me before dawn." Business. Alex ignored him, concentrating instead on Eric. "You now have the evidence." He nodded toward the documents Eric was holding, and after a moment, he handed up the bundle, saying, "It's all here. Paperwork, pictures, and even some addresses." I took what I could, and Alex swiftly skimmed over the papers. Getting closer as he recognized some of the listed sites, he said, "Good. This is enough to bring down more than just Rex." "Work, Eric." Rex made one final effort to scare Alex as the gang members were led out of the warehouse. "You have a dog and a badge, so you must be tough. Just wait and see what happens if you mistreat us." Alex approached Rex with a composed attitude, yet steely. "You undervalued Rex in two ways. Justice doesn't take days off, and Harper is more than just a dog." Harper barked sharply, almost like a dog. Alex's statements were punctuated by the sight of vehicles and officers processing outside the premises. Proof. Alex came up to Harper, who was sitting on the back bumper of an ambulance with a blanket over his shoulders. "You did well," trotting behind him. "Eric," Alex stated, "we'll handle it from here." The details he gave could demolish Rex's whole organization. Eric looked up with a glimmer of relief. Alex nodded. "Does that mean I'm safe?" "The cops will watch you, and you'll be protected if you need it, but you should exercise caution." Eric tried to pet Harper. "Huh," Eric added, his voice full of appreciation. "He saved me by waving his tail gently." Alex grinned at Harper in a way that I had never seen in a dog before, and Not only is he my partner, but he's also my family." As the evening wore on, Alex and Harper went back to their squad car to drop the weight. Alex looked at Harper as the events of the evening settled over them, his palm resting on the dog's head. "Well done," he said. "Tonight, boy, we made a difference." Harper responded with a gentle bark, his eyes gleaming with devotion. As they drove back to the station with Eric's proof, Alex and Harper realized that the night was far from done. Locked in the trunk, a call sounded on the police radio, and every unit was cautious when responding to reports of gang activity near the docks that could be retaliation for tonight's arrests. It appears that Rex's crew isn't removing the KN, as Alex and Harper exchanged glances, and Harper became alert at the idea of danger. After finishing this, Alex mumbled and gripped the driving wheel fiercely. He reached the docks, where there was a lot of fog, swept in from the lake, casting a spooky haze over the area, and the sound of crates and voices could be heard faintly, echoing off in the distance. Alex pulled his car to a safe spot and signaled Harper to follow. Together, they made their way, quietly during the Harper's training, enabling them to blend in with the darkness as Alex got closer to the scene of the disturbance, he noticed several guys offloading cartons from a truck onto A. The gang's insignia was displayed on the crates of the waiting boat, indicating that this was no typical shipment. Alex told Harper to keep low while he watched the event. He saw 6 armed men moving quickly, and they were obviously attempting to move the contraband before the cops could step in, and it was stressful. Alex reached for his. "This is Officer Alex Carter," he said in a stern yet hushed voice. "I've found a gang operation at the docks involving roughly 6 dangerous and armed criminals asking." Instant backup, one of the gang members pointed his flashlight on the Harpers while he waited for a response. Alex and Harper were searching the area when they crouched behind a pile of crates to avoid being seen. Harper stayed. The radio buzzed back to life back up en route, and he remained motionless, his keen eyes focused on the man with the flashlight. ETA 10 minutes. Alex scowled. 10 minutes seemed like a long time to be sitting still. Taking a deep breath, he made the decision to behave in this way since he couldn't risk allowing the gang to leave with the package. With Harper at his side, Alex approached the group and emerged from the Harpers, his voice piercing the gang members were momentarily stunned when the night cops dropped their firearms and raised their hands in the air. Alex and his intimidating K-9 partner appeared out of nowhere, but their surprise soon gave way to defiance as they said, "It's just one cop and his dog taking him down." But before they could do so, 2 men raised their firearms and pointed them at Alex. The man screamed as Harper sprang into action, lunging for the closest assailant and removing the weapon from his grasp. Alex fired a warning shot in agony as Harper's strong teeth clammed down on his arm, leaving him helpless. His voice was firm and forceful as he shouted, "Drop your weapons. The rest of the gang is surrounded." When they discovered the dog was far more powerful than they were, their confidence began to waver. Expected, but one of them, a burly man with a scar along his cheek, sneered and pretended that no one was there. Before Alex could reply, the gang members exchanged a few words as the faint sound of sirens started to permeate the night air. Scarface looked anxious, their determination eroding as the truth of their predicament struck in, but they weren't prepared to give up. Harper sensed the danger as he surged for Alex, a knife shining in his palm, released the initial assailant, and rushed in Scarface's direction, but they stopped him before he could get to Alex. Struck with such power that Scarface fell to the ground, the knife swiftly slipping out of Alex's reach. Put Scarface in handcuffs. He moved quickly and effectively. "Thus you chose the incorrect night too." As the remainder of the group lowered their guns and raised their hands, he added, "Muck with the lore," in a hard, icy voice. Officers swarmed as the backup units finally arrived, their dazzling lights piercing the gloom. Hands in surrender. Alex watched from a distance as the gang members were apprehended and the contraband was secured. Got under control, Harper sat by his side, his eyes awake and piercing, his chest heaving from effort. Alex extended. "Well done, boy. I couldn't have done it without you," one of the cops, going down to scratch behind Harper's ears. "Carter, you and that dog are something else we've been trying to shut down." He came up to Alex with a smile of awe on his face. Alex nodded. "Looks like you just nailed it after months of downing this operation." Harper, who is the true hero here, handled the most of the job as the officers started loading the gang members into police cars. Rex's previous statement replayed in Alex's mind. Believe that Rex's statement is over, but tonight Alex and Harper demonstrated that the law, when combined with loyalty and, despite the fact that the gang members were led away in handcuffs and the crates of, Alex's adrenaline started pumping after the contraband was seized, and the docks were suddenly crowded with officers, their spotlights piercing through the residual fog while they gathered evidence and evacuated the area. Yet even though the operation was successful, Harper was also restless. His eyes and ears perked up, and Alex sensed a persistent uneasiness. Alex hunkered down next to his partner and softly scurried toward the black warehouse that loomed just beyond the dockyard. "What's it, boy?" he asked, sliding a hand up Harper's back. Harper growled in response, his body stiff, and Alex indicated to a nearby officer that he was ready to move, trusting his companion's intuition. "Has anyone verified that?" Alex inquired, indicating toward the menacing building, but the cop looked over and shook his head. "Not yet." Harper picked up something, and Alex's jaw tensed as we concentrated on securing the suspects and the shipment. "I'll investigate." As they approached the warehouse, Alex felt Harper's weight bearing down on him. Remain near, his movements quiet but purposeful, the air heavy with diesel and salt water merging in the middle. Alex shoved the warehouse doors wide, his illumination piercing through the dim metallic tang of rust. There were stacks of wooden pallets and rusted machinery in the dimly lit, cavernous area. Police put Alex on high alert when they heard a sound of movement coming from farther inside. The reaction was instantaneous and unsettling as Alex shouted out in a firm but measured voice, "Come out with your hands up." Harper snarled as he heard a sharp clang and rushed footsteps retreating more inside the structure. Alex instantly ordered Harper to track Harper as he tensed up as he focused on the noise's origin. Took off, deftly navigating the maze of obstacles with Alex at his heels. Extended Harpers that swirled ominously around them as his flashlight bounced off the walls. The sound of. Harper abruptly stopped at the sound of increasingly loud footsteps that were revealing the direction of the escaping suspect. Alex approached him with his flashlight, his body rigid as he snarled steadily and low on the edge of a storage area, exposing a solitary guy huddled behind a pile of crates. The man was smaller than the others, and his thin body was shaking. The man's voice was unsteady but defiant as he yelled, "Don't come any closer," while holding a rusting pipe as a makeshift weapon. Alex lifted his hands and spoke in a calm, steady voice, saying, "I'm not going back to jail. You don't have to do this. Put the pipe down, and we can converse." But the man shook his head and tightened his hold, giving the impression that he was afraid of you. "Alex, I have nothing to lose," noted the desperation in his eyes as he closely examined him. This wasn't just about avoiding arrest. There was. Harper stayed calm, his growls low but constant, prepared to act at the slightest hint of something more behind this man's behavior. Alex stated, "Take a moment to realize that you have something to lose," his tone changing to one of subdued persuasion. "No matter what LED you see, your life and future don't have to finish this way, guy." Faltering, his hold on the pipe easing a bit, but a loud noise came from outside before Alex could get close. A shout and a muffled thump caught both of their attention. The man took advantage of the distraction to run quickly in the direction of A. Harper stopped him with a side exit, and Alex gave him a stern command. Harper then lunged. Harper pinned the guy to the ground when he dropped the pipe before he could reach the door. Alex swiftly stepped in, gripping the man's throat as his growls served as a strong warning to stay down. The suspect murmured to himself, "You don't even know," as Alex used zip ties to drag him to his feet. Alex's forehead furrowed, but he remained focused on the task at hand. "What you're dealing with, Rex's team, they're just getting started." Alex and Harper left the station with the suspect in custody. "And you can tell me anything about the urgent mission." Reuniting with the officers outside the disturbance that had previously diverted them, the warehouse revealed a second wave of. The docks were suddenly a sea of flashing lights after gang members tried to ambush the officers, but were swiftly defeated. The gang's intentions were completely destroyed by the lights and muted commotion as Alex gave the warehouse suspect to a different officer, and Captain Ora, his superior officer, came up to her, and looked at her. "Carter, you and Harper just saved us from what might have been a catastrophic incident involving the intel." Alex nodded, his eyes straying to Harper, who will provide us with all we need for this full netter task starting tonight. Harper did the heavy lifting as usual, and I'm just starting to unwind. Orga grinned and said, "You're lucky to have him. He's a fantastic companion. Are you going home to get?" Alex kissed Harper's head and said, "You deserve some rest." A feeling of quiet pride descended upon him. Yet as they made there, "You think this again?" Rex's admonition reverberated in Alex's head on the way back to the car. Although it had been a triumph over the course of the night, Alex knew better than to let his guard down, because this was only one battle and a much bigger one. Alex and Harper drove away from the docks, knowing that they would be prepared for whatever happened next in the bigger conflict. The man's cryptic warning caused the night's exhilaration to give way to a nagging uneasiness. He kept seeing flashes of the gang's blatant attacks, but it wasn't only the scope of the operation that unnerved him. They weren't merely carrying contraband. Their activities were characterized by recklessness and desperation. They were communicating, and as Alex looked at Harper in the passenger seat, the observant dog appeared to perceive his. Even while his body was resting, his eyes were vigilant and uneasy. "Something is wrong, boy." Harper softly thumped his tail on the seat while Alex talked, reassuring him that the voyage home was. Alex parked into his home without incident. The city's peaceful streets, a sharp contrast to the bustle of the docks. He parked the car and went out, Harper jumping, seeing his tiny, comfortable home, which offered a sense of normalcy. The night was still nice and clear down at his side, but Harper froze as they got closer to the front door. Alex mumbled his hand as his body tightened and his ears perked up. "What is it?" The dog snarled low as it reflexively moved toward his sidearm, his eyes fixed on. Alex's heart raced as he looked around the dimly lit porch. His years of training, kicking in the Harpers, appeared deeper than normal, and before Alex could move another step, there was a slight cigarette smoke odor in the air. Officer Carter. Alex turned abruptly in the evening when a voice pierced the quiet. A tall man wearing a leather jacket was seen leaning carelessly on the porch railing, illuminated by a spotlight. Rex's gang's distinctive symbol was shown on the back, and he grinned arrogantly while raising his hands in a false submission. Alex remarked in a chilly voice, "You've got guts showing up here," and the man laughed. Harper snarled harder and stepped defensively in front of Harper, saying, "I'm not here to start trouble, just delivering a message." The man's smile faltered a little, but Alex quickly composed himself. "Rex said you did us a service tonight by removing Alex's flashlight's weak points, and I wanted to thank you for that. Tighter, you're terribly mistaken if you think this ends tonight. We know it's just getting started," the man said. His tone darkens, "but before you poke the bear, you might want to reconsider, because Rex doesn't like it when people meddle with it." The man dropped a cigarette, but into the ground as part of his intentions, and he's not one to forgive. Alex's fingers paused over his radio, pondering, as he vanished into the Harpers, leaving Alex and Harper on high alert. Whether or not to call it in, he knew it wouldn't result in any immediate action, so he led Harper inside and locked. Harper paced the living room after Alex double-checked the locks and made sure the house was secure. His uneasiness mirrored Alex's, and the gang's implicit threat weighed heavily in the air, but Alex's determination hardened. He dropped into a chair, determined not to let a gang of thugs to threaten him or endanger his city. After reviewing the night's events with a hand running through his hair, Harper finally sat down at his feet, his eyes. Alex scratched behind the dog's ears while staying close to the door, so we'll be prepared for anything that comes up. Next, he continued quietly. Alex returned to the precinct the next day, Harper by his side, going over the evidence they'd. Information from various departments that were gathered from the dock showed that Rex's gang was increasing their operations. Officers intercepted shipments of illegal firearms and extorted small businesses throughout the city. Alex's mind raced, trying to piece together the riddle of the claimed rise in gang member sightings close to key places. In addition to operating a smuggling enterprise, Rex was getting ready for something much more ambitious and dangerous. As Alex was getting ready to go for home that evening, a radio transmission came in, alerting all units to reports of a huge motorcycles gathered at the former industrial park on 5th Street may indicate gang activity. Proceed with caution. Alex looked at Harper, Rex's turf in the industrial park was the ideal spot for the group to get together and make plans. Alex immediately gathered his equipment for their next move, making sure Harper's vest was secure. As Alex reached the scene, he whispered, "Is secure. Let's end this." The sound of revving motors reverberated off the deteriorating buildings, and the gang's presence was evident in the dozens of. A focal figure, Rex himself, Alex parked, surrounded by bikers with their patches glistening in the flickering streetlights. Harper was by his side at a safe distance while he radioed for assistance, but the motorcyclist seemed uneasy and Alex's wild motions were a display of force, not just a meeting. When Rex moved forward and raised his hands to silence the group, his voice boomed over them, confirming suspicions. Rex stated that nobody should cross us tonight. Therefore, we sent a message to the engines. Police officers, not the city, and certainly not some soiled K9 handler Alex's hold. Harper growled next to him as he tightened his weapon, and Rex's remarks validated his suspicions that the gang wasn't merely. Just as they prepared a direct attack, Rex abruptly gestured to Alex's location. "And our guest of honor," he scoffed, and the group burst out laughing as motorcyclists revved their engines and cut their spotlights. The motorcycles rushed forward through the darkness, illuminating Harper and Alex before Alex could flee. Harper's body was rigid, ready to defend his mate at all costs, and Alex stood his ground as the engines roared like a stampede. An officer under attack is radioing for immediate assistance and asking for backup. Harper jumped into action when the first rider arrived at 5th and Industrial Park, but there was no time to wait. Alex exploited the diversion to disarm one of the riders and pull him off after running to the side to get their attention. Harper's training shone as he dodged the biker's efforts to corner him, using his bike as cover and lunging at one. Alex fought off 2 more Kais while his teeth dug into the rider's arm, causing him to veer off course. The numbers were overwhelming as Alex and Harper started to falter, despite years of battle experience arriving at the front. The air was filled with the sound of sirens approaching. Backup cops had arrived. Officers poured out as cars swamped the industrial park, their flashing lights giving the area an unsettling glow. Taking command of the situation and establishing a defensive line as soon as Rex realized his plans were failing. Tried to escape on his bike, but Harper wasn't going to allow that to happen. With a sudden burst of speed, he caught Rex. Alex was on him in a matter of seconds, pinning him to the bike as it skidded and crashed. Ground as Harper snarled ominously. "It's over," Alex remarked in a quiet voice. Even if he was pumped with adrenaline, "You're done," because Rex was taken away in handcuffs with the other gang members. The industrial park, which had previously been a center of illicit activity, was turned over one by one. Officers are already swarming the area, gathering evidence, confiscating motorcycles, and Alex knelt next to Harper and ran a hand through his fur, saying, "You did good, buddy," as the gang's plans were foiled. Harper, full of gratitude, waggled his tail and stared at Alex as though to say, "We accomplished it jointly." And although we felt victorious at the end of the night, Alex understood that Rex's imprisonment was a serious setback. But the gang's power wouldn't go away right away. For the time being, the city remained secure, and Alex and Harper had once again demonstrated their ability to work as a cohesive unit as the turmoil at the. Alex stood amid the flashing lights of police cars as the industrial park grew quiet, effectively recording evidence, handling arrests, and maintaining area security. Even though the night was long, there was a sense of achievement in the air because Rex's capture was a major victory. Harper rested at his feet, while Alex leaned against his patrol car, representing the city as a whole, not just the department. After the heated showdown, Alex reached down and scratched the dog's chest, which rose and fell steadily. His tiredness was obvious. "You're a hero, Harper," he muttered quietly behind Harper's ears, and the dog answered. Alex waggled his tail wearily, his eyes drooping momentarily, as though he was relishing the compliment. The next morning, Alex discovered Harper trotted next to him when he returned to the precinct, his vigor somewhat recovered from the previous night's sleep. As their fellow officers began to applaud, Alex was surprised by the enthusiastic welcome. But Harper, always the center of attention, he barked joyfully and swinging his tail wildly. The precinct's captain came over with a rare smile on his face as Alex taunted Harper and patted his side. Facing Carter, you and Harper have surpassed yourselves. The proof we found last night and Rex's arrest will. His operation was a joint effort, sir, and you've given the city something to be proud of. Alex bowed respectfully. Harper and I simply completed our tasks. And as the day went on, word of Rex's arrest spread like wildfire. Alex couldn't help but notice the headlines that praised the officer's bravery for the spectacular takedown. Experience a surge of pride for Harper, whose astute judgment and unwavering resolve had been. Back at home that night, Alex sat on his porch and played a crucial role in their achievement. Harper was lying next to him, nibbling on a well-earned treat while the evening breeze carried the sounds of the neighborhood. As Alex sipped his coffee, he thought about the journey they had taken and how Harper's scars were evidence of the conflicts they had fought together, but they also provided a tale of tenacity and devotion. With bravery, Alex permitted himself a brief moment of peace, even though he knew their work was far from done. Alex said to himself, "We've started to twinkle in the night sky." Harper raised his head. "We've been through a lot, haven't we, boy? But I know we can face whatever comes next." There was no need for words when his expressive eyes met Alex's. This amazing trip between Alex and Harper serves as a reminder of the power of their bond, found in partnership, bravery, and loyalty. If this tale moved you, remember it. To join us for more stories of bravery and heart, click the subscribe button. While you're here, click the next. We have another story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. So watch the video and see you there.